So I have a tried and true system for approaching figure drawing. This does not mean that this is the only way to approach figure drawing, but this is the way that I find to be the easiest and that most students generally have the most success with. It's called general to specific. When you are looking to draw a figure, you first want to work with things that are more general and then eventually get to the details and things that are more specific. So going with our three topics that we discussed earlier, the first thing you want to do is define space. The second thing you want to do is refine shapes. And the third thing you want to do is create form. Demonstrate how to go through this entire method with this figure right here. First, I'm going to look for the space around the figure. Then I'm going to define her into shapes, into a robo person. And then we're going to create form by adding those shadow shapes. Notice when I get started that I'm sketching super lightly, making lots of light gestural marks just to sort of generally block in the space that the figure is occupying. At this point, I want to be somewhere in the ballpark of being correct, but I'm not looking for specificity just yet. Then when you go and block things in, blocking in the actual negative shapes, that's where you can get a bit more specific and check that that shape is accurate. So now we're going to move to the shape step. Now, as you're turning your drawing into a robo lady, be sure to go slow and not gloss over shapes. Do not idealize the figure and make sure that you are creating accurate proportions and correct shape relationships. You should always be checking your drawing until it is done. You never stop checking and reworking the drawing to make sure that it's as correct as it can be. So starting with the head, I'm working with a sphere shape into the shoulders, a sphere shape into the arms using cylinders, into the legs, also breaking them down into cylinders with a sphere for the knee. And I just want to point out the hands and feet. So for the hands, I'm using a square shape for the palm. And you'll notice that I'm not drawing each individual finger because I don't feel it's necessary at this point. I just use a general shape like a pentagon or sort of a trapezoidal shape to show the location of the fingers and the direction. For the feet, you want to use a sphere for the heel, and then the arch and the toes sort of end up being these awkward triangular shapes. So last step is creating form. Now, as you start to create form, really take a moment and first see if you can actually see the shadow shapes. If you can't see the shadow shapes, that needs to be your first step, identifying them. Then just work through piece by piece in the figure. So starting with the arms, going into the head, really breaking down the torso. Again, if you can't tell exactly where the shape ends, use your best judgment. That is your job as the artist. At this point, once you've marked them all in, you want to shade using either hatching or cross hatching. Turn to a new page in your visual journal. Make sure that the spiral binding is facing the top so that your page is oriented horizontally, and divide it into two. For this picture and then one more that follows it, go ahead and draw those figures to the size of the page using space, shape, and form. Pause the video to do this first figure here, and then restart when you're ready to do the second.